2 weeks and 2 days to go in this race for the White House, and President Trump, down in the polls, facing persistent unemployment, a new surge in COVID cases, is barnstorming the country to rally his troops, repeating his favorite lines. Late last night in Wisconsin, which set new coronavirus records on Thursday and Friday, he insisted we're rounding the corner on the pandemic. Just hours after laying into Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer, the target of a domestic terror plot revealed just last week.
Then I guess they said she was threatened, right? She was threatened. And she blamed me. You got to get your governor to open up your state, okay? And get your schools open. Get your schools open. The schools have to be open, right? Lock them all up.
And that's where we begin with our first guest, House Speaker Nancy Pelosi. Madam Speaker, thank you for joining us this morning. I want to get to the latest on the stimulus negotiations with the White House, but first, your reaction to that new salvo from President Trump last night. Governor Whitmer said this is exactly the kind of rhetoric that has put me, my family, and the lives of other government officials in danger.
Yeah. The president has to realize that the words of the President of the United States weigh a ton. And in our political dialogue, to inject fear tactics into it, especially a woman governor and her family, is so irresponsible. And in all fairness to people who listen to him, people think the president is important and what he says should be adhered to. And so we have this horrible situation. But the people have awakened to him. 26 million people already voting. The biggest antidote to his poison is the vote.
A lot of Americans are hurting, as you know, as well, Madam Speaker. I know you've been negotiating with the White House over a possible economic relief package, and you spoke with Secretary Mnuchin last night.
Yes.
Any closer to reaching a deal?
Well, we're seeking clarity because actually, with all due respect to some of the people in the president's administration, they're not legislators. So when they said we're accepting the language on testing, for example, and we're just making a light touch. They said they changed shall to may, requirements to recommendations, a plan to a strategy, not a strategic plan. They took out 55% of the language that we had there for testing and tracing. And the tracing part is so important because communities of color have been disproportionately affected by this. So on this subject where we have agreement, we don't have agreement in the language yet, but I'm hopeful. And here's the big difference. Communities of color have more deaths than the white population. Let's just think of this. If you were a child, a Hispanic child has 8 times more chance of going to the hospital with COVID than a white child. A black child, 5 times more chance of going to the hospital than that. That's because we have not addressed the problem, the testing, the tracing, the treatment, the mask wearing, the separation, the sanitation, and all that goes with it. So again, hopefully we can learn from each other and they understand. And let me just say this. We had pages and pages of how you would do this in the minority community. They crossed it all out. Instead, they put this sentence. Contact tracing will be paid for by the federal government as part of the $75 billion. Okay, we agree with that. But given state difference, each state shall establish a strategy that is appropriate to its circumstances. CDC can provide guidance to the states on elements. Can, no, must. But in addition to that, we have to have a national plan. You cannot leave it up to the states
so if you
decide
don't,
how they're going to address the minority community.
If you don't get that agreement, if you don't get that agreement in the 48-hour deadline you said, what happens?
Well, here's the thing. The 48 only relates to if we want to get it done before the election, which we do.
Well, don't you? Yeah.
Yeah, so which we do. But we're saying to them, we have to freeze the design on some of these things. Are we going with it or not? And what is the language? I'm optimistic because, again, we've been back and forth on all of this. You know legislation. Shall is different from may. And the difference amounts to this. If you think of it this simple way, When you say may, you're giving the president a slush fund. He may do this, he may grant, he may withhold. When you say shall, according to the the science tell us must happen. And if we test and trace and treat, mask, separate, ventilate, sanitize, and all the rest of that, we can open our schools.
But
we
Madam
can
Speaker,
open our businesses.
Even if you reach a deal with the White House somewhere around $1.82 trillion, Leader McConnell has said he's not going to put something like that on the floor of the Senate. So what happens?
Well, he said a number of things. And one of the things that he said, I think it was yesterday, but it was reported yesterday, that is if the White House and the House come to an agreement, that he would put it on the floor. That is among his many statements. But most of the time he spends laughing, pushing the pause button, telling states to go bankrupt, laughing when in his debate, did you see that, when Amy McGrath was saying to him, what are you doing about stopping the spread of the virus, et cetera? He laughed. He laughed. This is not funny. The president didn't take it seriously. McConnell has not taken it seriously. But we can stop this if we follow the science and be ready for a vaccine, which I hope will be soon.
You haven't spoken to the president in over a year. Are you willing to pick up the phone to close the deal, to get this done?
Look, let me just say this, because I keep getting that question. It isn't about the president. He sends his representative. President Bush sent his representative. President Obama sent their representative. Professionals who know something about the policy. This is not unusual. However, I have a great deal of respect for the office I hold, Speaker of the House, and I have a great deal of respect for the position that he holds, President of the United States. This is not a casual conversation. This is about a meeting of the head of the first branch of government, the legislative branch, and the president. If there is a purpose, if there is a stipulation of trying to get something done, then perhaps we take this to that place when we can't solve other problems. But many of you have spent many times calculating how many times the president has misrepresented the facts, how many times the president has told me and told Chuck Schumer that, yes, we're going to do this for Dreamers, or told bipartisan, bicameral representatives in the Congress, yes, we're going to do this on immigration, told us, yes, we're going to do this on infrastructure, but then he doesn't. So again, you want to meet with him, you meet with him. But as far as I'm concerned, the Speaker of the House must be respected in terms of what the purpose of the meeting is, what the preparation is for it, and what the likely outcome of success would be.
Bottom line, Madam Speaker, are Americans going to get relief before Election Day?
Well, that depends on the administration. The fact is that we cannot, the heart of the matter is to stop the spread of the virus. Now, let me speak to you from the standpoint of children, because that is my why. That is why I am in government and politics. For the children, we're having a big debate with them now over earned income tax credit. They get a tax break to the richest people in America. We want a earned income tax credit, child tax credit, child independent tax credit for the children, 6 to 8 million, depending on whose calculation you use. Million kids are now, people are in poverty in our country, and many of them are children. So this will take millions of children out of poverty, send them to schools that take money to have the separation, the ventilation of the number of teachers there to teach them, have correct this coronavirus that is affecting Black and Hispanic children in much greater way than white kids. And that takes us all back to state and local government, which is the source of health care, education, first responders, police and fire, food, sanitation, and the rest. There's a oneness to this. I think we can get there. But if you think of it in terms of the children and child care, childcare, they're rejecting our number on childcare, which is greatly reduced, but they're rejecting it, saying childcare is people can't go to work if their children can't go to school.
Finally, Madam Speaker, I do have to move on, but I just want to ask you one final question about Judge Amy Coney Barrett. Last time we spoke, you said Democrats had arrows in their quiver to block this nomination, but she seems like she's on a path to confirmation right now. Is this a done deal, or is there still something Democrats can do to stop it?
Well, we'll see. I'm not in the Senate. I don't. What I'm talking about is how we win this election, because we have to offset whatever the outcome of this, whatever this court may do. And the Congress of the United States can overturn these bad decisions. For example, the court just did one on the census. The census is a disagreement we have in this bill. This is very important, who we are as a nation. And yet the court just agreed with the president to stop the census. So again, because we want to have an agreement, we can come to negotiation. And we can do it now. What's the difference, a few days, except that we could have it before the election, which we want it as soon as possible. And I certainly want it, because I don't want to have to be sweeping up after this dumpings of this elephant as we go into a new presidency in a few short months.
Madam Speaker, thank you for your time this morning. Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.